Hi guys, welcome back to another exciting and inspiring episode of the Inspired Life Vancouver. I'm your host Zara Durrani. It's been my ultimate pleasure to bring to you amazing locals here in Vancouver who are making a positive impact in their communities. Some of the conversations I've been truly wanting to have and some individuals who I've been truly wanting to speak to selfishly. I hope you've been feeling inspired. I know I truly am. Joining me right now is a multiple best-selling author, motivational speaker. I knew her back in the day when she was modeling. That's how we met. And she has gone on to speak on stages of TED. She's traveled and spoken at many international events, Canadian events. Her clients include actors, athletes. I'm talking about none other than Farzana Jaffer Jeraj, who wrote the amazing book, How I Cheat at Meditation, and has 2 new books in the making. I can't wait to read them. Farzana, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Wow, I'm honestly, truly so inspired to get to know you deeper over the last little while. Like, we've been connected on social media for so long. And I think for some reason, for so long in my brain was this image of you, these beautiful, stunning photos. You were with Richards back in the day. And I remember seeing, I think they were like some body kind of like ad campaigns you had done. And then you had this shift towards personal development. And I had no idea that you'd worked with Tony Robbins. You've been meditating for the last 37 years. Wow.
And it's actually funny because I started working with Tony Robbins and doing self-development work before modeling. In fact, Tony Robbins gave me my first modeling job.
Wow.
So I've been doing it longer than I modeled.
That's amazing. Now, the number, when I read, like, they're meditating for the last 37 years, and you've been, for the last 40. I'm like, you're meditating out of the room.
I should just keep it at 37 and never change it and then be like, 37 years and just not get a gauge on my age.
We're all about, talking about our age. I know we were talking about that earlier. That's truly remarkable.
Yeah.
So tell me what led you towards this career in personal development. What got you started into meditation?
So meditation, I think, was kind of destiny. I was raised in a community where we have a Sufi tradition of 4 a.m. meditation. And in our community, they would do these things where they have a students' week. And so for 7 days, they get the kids to come officiate the ceremonies, do all the things. And every day afterwards, you go have breakfast at McDonald's, which is not the choice I would make today. But as a kid, in the 80s, it was like, we're going to go to McDonald's. But I was really young. I was about 2 years old when my mom took me to my first one. And I had a really, really profound experience going that first day and every day that week that I did go. And
that is so young to wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, my mom just woke me up. I still remember it was the first time I think I'd ever woken up at that time, like consciously woken up. And there's this, it's different than staying up late, right? When you go to sleep and then wake up at 4 a.m., there's this feeling, and your mind, like the voice in your mind is crystal clear, like your own awareness is clear, and then the thoughts are quite loud. All the sounds and emotions are quite loud because there's less that connects you to the physical world at that time of the day. And so as a 2-year-old, I obviously didn't have that many worldly concerns, so it wasn't that intense. But I still remember just being kind of hazy, tired, but still feeling this sharp alertness. And I remember, like, even the drive to the mosque, it felt like it felt like everything was like silky smooth water, and everyone else was underneath the water, and we were on the surface of the water making a little bit of noise. And it was like you could sense a little bit of noise over there, a little bit of vibration in different spots. And when we got to the mosque, we went in, and it's pitch black except for the exit signs. And my mom sat me down, and she gave me the prayer beads, and she just said, say this again and again. And I was like, internally something just felt off about it. And so I just asked, and I said, what should I do? And in my mind, like a corridor kind of appeared, and like it kind of narrowed in the center, and then it got bigger again. And my thoughts started to move from me into the corridor, and I'd pause on them and go, okay, well, what really matters here? Can I do something about it? Can I not? Do I need to let it go? Do I need to forgive the person? And then it would just disappear, and I would just let it go. And because I was a kid, there wasn't much in there, and there wasn't, much to process. And as soon as the thoughts were done, there was just space to be aware, and the corridor dissolved, and it was just myself and this vast expanse. And it didn't feel empty, it felt connected. It felt like being in the present moment. It felt like an awareness that was transcendent to the universe. And I was young enough to not be told that meditation was difficult, that it was hard, that it was going to take a lifetime, all these things that people think about it, and have this beautiful experience. And I mean, even afterwards, I rarely talk about this, but towards the end of the meditation, I had this sense, like, it was like, not quite a voice, but something told me to look up. And I looked up and opened my eyes, and I perceived these kind of blobs of light in what was an otherwise pitch black room. And whether it was a hallucination or not, as a child, I decided that those were angels, or that's what I felt or believed them to be. And it just seemed like some of them were connected to people, and some of them were just there. And my perception was that they were rejoicing. They were so happy that we were all there.
I think in our cultures we talk about that, right? Like,
yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it's just the most beautiful feeling. Like, I had perceived things before that, and I had sensed things before that, like different energies, vibrations from people, from places, from other things. But I would say that was my first really positive one, where I got to sense and perceive things of such a light, loving, joyful, just grace. And I mean, that started my addiction in meditation pretty much. And I say addiction because it was definitely the way I never got diagnosed with ADHD. It was the way I managed being extremely bullied growing up and some other difficult situations. And so I would say, without knowing it, because as a child for me it was a very deeply spiritual pursuit of meditation, and yet it was also my first self-management tool.
And I find that so beautiful to hear. Like, even when you were mentioning it, I really just wanted you to keep on talking, because I felt I was there with you. Like, the way, even the tone of your voice is really, truly calming. I don't know if you ever do, like, record any affirmations or meditations and such, but you have a very calming and soothing voice. That is so fascinating. So how did you get connected with Tony Robbins, and how did that all come to be? I don't hear many 16-year-olds saying that, they're working with Tony Robbins.
Yeah, okay, so extreme bullying, and my mom, in her proper Indian mother fashion, was just like, you know what? You don't have any self-esteem. We're going to fix you. And she tricked me into going to this Tony Robbins seminar. And, I mean, we just had these vacations that were very educational. I mean, my mom, when I was like 11, she sent me to live in an Eastern township, so I learned French. Same thing when I was 6 years old in Mexico. And again, like, it was always things like that, to learn Spanish, learn French.
I love that.
Like,
That's
it was
amazing.
So cool. I always enjoyed them. And it was always these educational holidays, and just one time, not because I was ungrateful for the other things, because I was, but as a kid, you're like, I want to go to Disneyland.
I want to
I
have
want to
fun.
go to Hawaii. And so my brother was away at university, and my mom was like, yeah, we're going to Hawaii. And I'm like, oh my God, really? We're going to have a real holiday? Because I don't know where it came from, but I had been dreaming of turquoise waters my whole life. And yeah, we went to Hawaii. We spent a day in Maui. We flew to the Big Island. And it's funny, I got out, and at the airport, I saw this man, and he had this glow to him. And I was like, and at this point in my life, I'd come to know that people who glow, they're going to be significant in my life, but I didn't think anything of it. I just trust it. And we checked into our hotel, and then we went to another hotel. And at the time, my dad had a travel agency, so I thought he was trying to get us into a better spot. And so we go to this other hotel, and I kept telling my dad, I'm like, don't worry, our hotel is nice, we're good, don't worry about it. And my mom supposedly went to the bathroom, but was gone for 20 minutes. And so I was like, Dad, I'm going to go check on her. And he's like, no. I go around the corner, and I see giant posters of Tony Robbins. And it was like
It was Date with Destiny or something?
It was Life Mastery. And back
Okay.
then it was 2 weeks. It was 2 whole
Wow.
weeks. But also I hated the sound of his voice, because the sound of his voice when I was growing up, my mom would listen to his tapes, and then we would all get grounded because we were not living up to our potential. And I would get in trouble, and I would have like a very detailed schedule of all the things that I had to do down to the minute. And so I did not like him very much. I did not have positive associations with Tony Robbins. But then when we went in there, it was amazing. And everything that everyone called me too sensitive. But growing up, I always knew that because I understood my emotions, and because I understood why I felt what I felt, I had power. And no one could make me feel something or do like I had much more power over myself because of that. I think part of the reason I don't hold as much baggage, and I think also the meditation gave me space for that too. And anyways, the first 3 days of the event were called Emotional Mastery. And it was everything that I'd always believed, and like in a system of steps. And it's just like, and a part of me was just like, see, Mom and Dad, see, I was right. But it made so much sense to me that as soon as I did my part, I would support people around me, and I saw someone struggling, and I would just kind of ask them, what's happening for you? What's going on for you? Okay. What about this? What about this? And I sort of and they would start to understand it. And it was never what I thought they should do, but what they would do. And I guess Tony and his master trainer, who I think at certain events they share the stage 50-50. Joseph McClendon III, he wrote the book Get Happy Now, among many, many other bestsellers. They had been watching me, and he picked me out of the crowd. They picked me out of the crowd, and on the way to the bathroom, they're like, caught me by the wrist, and I was like, thought I was in trouble, and they're like, we've been watching you, and I was like, and they're like, we've been watching you, and we feel like you have a gift with people, and we'd like to train you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that's how it started. And so I started facilitating seminars, doing the trainings.
And you were like just 16 at the time?
Barely. Like not even yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just like a natural empath, and your ability to see people and listen to them and look at them and see how you can help support them.
And I think that like a combination of being bullied, like really horribly bullied, and then also being one of the eldest in my family of all the kids, and just trying to foster a really loving community in my family when I was growing up, was just like this, taking those two and meshing them together.
Can you talk a bit about that? Like you've mentioned the bullying. I know we've talked about it over lunch. Like, was that throughout high school or elementary school? And
so I guess my first couple of years I was in public school, and my parents, they were immigrants. They worked really hard to send me to the best school they could. And I was also adopted. So my mom couldn't have children. And she had my brother, and she almost died having him. And when she came to Canada, she tried really hard to adopt. And she got me several years after my brother. And yeah, I don't really, like, we're Indian, but I'm darker skinned. And so, as something that I've come to learn as an adult, is that was racism. As a child, I remember growing up with all of these ads saying, Canada has abolished racism. There is no racism in Canada and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. And so I just thought that there was something wrong with me when kids wouldn't talk to me, or teachers were mean to me, or even like when I was in Girl Guides and the chief Girl Guide leader she hated me. Like she was like, they were so mean all the time. And yeah, like I would get picked on, I would get bullied by the teachers even. And that went on until my mom and dad, one day it got physically violent, and my parents realized that, and it was bad, and then they switched my school. And that was when things started to change. And it was the difference between going to a very expensive private school to going to a Catholic school that's, partially subsidized Catholic school. And, for me, the Catholic school was the best thing. It was a moral environment. And everything changed. I went from having 1 to 0 friends to being pretty much friendly with everyone in the grade.
I'm so sorry for that experience. Like I can, and not definitely to that intensity, but moving to Canada from Pakistan at 17, I did 1.5 years of high school. And when I was in Pakistan, like I was the cool kid because I was on the debate team, and I was like the best student with the best grades, and that's what made me cool. And everyone wanted to be my friend because I was smart. And coming here, it was whoever was partying the most and were like, the certain smallest
cool meant something different.
Yes, completely different.
Yeah.
And I remember I was made fun of for like my hair, because I have like naturally curly hair. It's like blown out for camera right now. And like I didn't really know how to style it. I was such a tomboy. And it's so different for your nervous system, because your nervous system is like, I just went from being like having so many friends and everyone wanting to be my friend to now even my cousins didn't want me to say that, hey, I'm like, Zara is our cousin, because we all went to the same school.
Yeah, they would pretend, like at home with the family, it's one thing.
Yeah.
And then in school, it was just like this kind of silent understanding. No, you don't talk to us here.
Yeah.
Like they weren't exactly mean, but they would be bystanders while other people bullied you.
100%.
Yeah.
And all I waited was for school to be over. And then, so thank you so much for sharing that.
Did you ever fake sick so you wouldn't have to go on certain days?
I would like just spend time like in the library.
Yeah.
I think I had one other friend who was Hungarian. She struggled at home and struggled sort of at school, but we became each other's friends. And it was nice that in my, like I did grade 11 parts of it, and then grade 12. In grade 12, like we became friends, and it was like it sort of helped anchor me. But yeah, it's certainly like challenging. And then it was fascinating when some of the high school students saw like that I was modeling, and then after school was done, or had a TV show or acting or whatever. But I find it fascinating because I think so many people who found success, they come from a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Like deep pain. And it's like you can allow that pain to like either take you in one direction or this, like either, and it forces us to go in. And I think it also creates that some loneliness inside. And only once you overcome that, it helps create that empathy of what it's like. So I feel like your profession is so perfect for you, because you're able to help so many people now, because you've been so much on the other side of what it's like.
And I will say that you can never let go of that. The moment you think that that pain is actually gone is the moment that you stop doing your work and the moment you stop being able to connect to other people. I truly believe that being in empathy with your own pain is the secret to being able to hold space for others while they're in theirs. And when people can't listen to other people in pain, it's because they can't listen to themselves. To me, that's like the secret to being in touch as a healer. And honestly, yesterday, in fact, I really found myself sitting in gratitude for some of the narcissistic abuse that I experienced, for some of the bullying, for all of these things, because in some ways also even just being adopted set me up with so much gratitude. My parents told me the story of how they wanted me, how they got me. So no parenting situation is perfect by any means. So that whenever things were bad, I still always felt grateful. And I've always had this feeling of gratitude for everything in my life. And taking that gratitude through and deciding, what am I going to learn? Like, what does this mean? Having a sense of spirituality that I am something that is beyond a physical lifetime even meant that these painful moments were not everything. And so that really helped me to be able to learn and grow and to use these challenges as things that I grow from, to be able to go to see someone in that moment and remember that this is how I was feeling, this is what I was going through, and this was the mindset shift that helped me go through that. And to not just tell someone that, but to support them with asking the right questions to guide them on their journey so that they can start to look at things in a different way for themselves.
Do you think that you got into your profession because you get to help so many people and have these conversations because you needed that at one point in your life? I feel like you have this natural sense of being able to see through or pinpoint where someone needs help. And no wonder you're so sought after as a speaker, as a coach, and the books that you've written, that they speak to people because of, I'm sure, like on even a subconscious level, like even though your parents provided you a beautiful home, you went to the best school, and you had all this amazing educational trips, I'm sure on a subconscious level there is this, the fact that you were adopted, like some pain. Do you think that there is some of that, and that's how you're through the pain of that and then the bullying, that you're able to use and heal from that and then help others?
So yes to the generality of what you're saying, and there's just so many layers to what you just asked, in the sense that on like a shallower level, I would say that I was a people pleaser because I wanted people to like me when I was growing up. I'm still kind of a people pleaser, and I was kind of raised with British parenting where you have to be so polite and just make sure everybody's happy all the time, and then cultural things about being a daughter and making sure everyone's emotionally happy. And so there's some cultural things in there too. But on a deeper spiritual level, I would say there's two sides to this. On one side, I had this experience when I was 5 years old, and my mom was really, really unfair. We're not going to talk about it, but I went to my room and I was choked, and I was like, God, I was like, what did I do to deserve her for a mother? And I had this flash out of linear time to before I came into this physical life. And there were these three figures in front of me, and there was a table with cards on them. And I had picked all of the cards, but there were three major cards, and those cards were what I had to accomplish in this lifetime. And at the time, I didn't look at all of the other cards completely, but one was glowing, and that was my mom. And I knew in that moment that I had picked her so that I could have that experience. And I know that might seem really weird, but I would say that I feel like part of this journey is absolutely my destiny. I was destined to do this. I was destined to come in this time in this body. Like, this is what I believe, and this is, sometimes I have to swallow down the discomfort of what it means to have been given that, because it can feel overwhelming and feel like I'm just one person. It's a lot to do, and deal with the conversations of like, what makes me so special that I'm supposed to do this work. And on the other hand, there is an aspect where perhaps the adoption and the bullying and all these other things, I've always kind of felt like an outsider. I never fully fit in with the family. I never fully fit in my religious community. I never really fit in with the Hindu dance that I studied, or when bagpipe or Highland dancing, or like all the other things that I did. I never fully fit in anywhere. And yet I can understand them all, because I had so many feet in different areas. And there was a healing that I did a while back, and there was an aspect of my work that I actually felt kind of ashamed of, but there was something that actually became one of the most empowering things, because I got in touch with my pain again. And it was this moment where I had the realization that I didn't feel like I deserved to take up space on the planet, and therefore I had to earn it. And so being of service meant that I deserved to exist, to have existence. And that's some deep self-worth work, right? That's like some deep spiritual, fundamental self-worth work, which is why I was like, you asked that question, and I'm like, yes. And you can go from people pleasing to like the deepest core of yourself being of like, where is my self-worth? And acknowledging that for me keeps me in a really beautiful, vulnerable space. And it does keep me on my edge. And having the question of like, what makes you so special, you know, that's ego. And that's when I make it about me. Whereas if I'm thinking about being of service, it's never about me. And then I can just do things. Like writing the books, doing all of that, it's always been about being of service.
Like when I open your book, I can like open at any page or any chapter. I love like the how I cheat at meditation. It's everything just pops out. You know, I feel my brain is, I think I'm partially ADHD as well, except I'm a maximalist, as you can see. I love how there's these beautiful like exercises and inspiring quotes and different things that just jump out, that maybe the inner child inside of me is like, oh, I really like that, because I'm not the type of person who, this is going to sound funny, who just sits down and like reads a book. I just like to open up and be like, okay, this is a chapter, and I read like sometimes backwards. I'll underline and read different bits. Like I have a hard time just sitting down and like reading a full book together. I thank you so much for your openness and your honesty, and like also part of what you were saying culturally. Like I can relate so much, because similar cultures, and even feeling very like, I won't say who, but members in my family have received certain emails when I was younger, when I was modeling, and, you know, interesting comments that would just really make me like question myself, or put some fear inside of me of like even being bigger.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I was afraid of having certain level of success. I think you and I were talking about having a voice. You know, for me, when I was younger, for a long time, I was so disconnected with like how I was even feeling, because for us, it wasn't really like, how are you feeling? You know, it's, you just talk about the grades and how are you doing, and like doer. So I didn't really get to have a childhood. It was like becoming an adult very fast, and complimented on that. So when you do that, then you just keep doing. And then I was a leader, being the firstborn. So I just became an adult at like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Because I was helping look after my baby brothers and walking them to school at 6.
And because you could, people just put more on you.
Voila.
Yeah.
And then I would get complimented on that. And then even in
and they reinforce it, and then you feel good. You start to be like, yeah, I am good at this.
And that's how I get the, the attention or the love that the child is seeking.
Well, and that's because we were raised in cultures and families and generations where validation and love sometimes get given together. And so you mistake validation with love, and they're actually separate things. Because you could completely disagree with someone and think that their idea is invalid and love them and respect them immensely. And you could agree with someone and completely hate their guts.
Yes.
Right? And they're not the same. And yet being raised that way teaches you to seek that validation for love. Right?
I love like your openness with how you talk about even your own personal experiences. And I think as a healer, as a motivational coach, and like, this amazing roster of clients that you have acquired, and how you talk to industry professionals at events and such, like no wonder they're coming to you, because not only can you speak about that, but now also speaking from that personal experience. I want to talk about like what are some of the key things that you work with your clients on, because you're working with athletes and actors and executives, like people who are super high performing. So what are some of the common denominators?
So if it's one-on-one, I only work with people who are willing to take responsibility for themselves. That's not to say we don't have genetic challenges, neurological challenges, situational challenges, but it is the decision that I am going to do the best that I can. I'm going to be the best that I can, right? And I'm going to be in truth about it. And that to me is like the number one thing. You have to be self-responsible, and you have to be willing to be self-reflexive, which means to look at yourself and take action. And I would say that's huge for me. The other thing I would say is I tend to attract the type of client that has done a lot of work. And I just, even for myself, like, do you ever find that when you're having challenges, you may love all of your friends, but you may not talk to every friend about certain things because the advice they would give you would be just like, oh, well, you should just do this. Well, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Or don't, that's fine.
Or forget about that. Or like, just so whatever the feelings are.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. Where it's like you're in the feeling and or whatever that is. And sometimes you need that professional support and help where it's not biased, but you're actually getting this outside opinion that is, not the more clear opinion.
Or like, I call it discernment, right? Because you do so much self-work. You're always looking into things, even just by nature of the people that you choose and you get to speak to on your show. And in general, you're functioning on a very high level. Like, that means that if you're stuck on something, then if it was basic, you probably would have done it, right? And so there are subtler things, and sometimes it takes like just a fine-tooth comb to go through things. And I would say that's really my specialty as someone who does the work myself. Like, the spiral of life, right? Like you're here, you're in a good space, and then you start to have some challenges. You have a big challenge, and you start to decline. Okay, and you start to decline, and then at the bottom you hit your rock bottom, and you start to learn something from it, and you start to pick up the pieces, and you start to build and build and build, and then you're in this epiphany phase, and you're like riding the top of the epiphany, and then things taper off, and it's good, but then challenge happens again, and we go through this in our lives again and again, and the more we go through the spiral, the smaller the spiral gets. And so if you've been doing your work, it can be really hard to catch the up from the down, from the swing if the spiral is like really tiny now, right? And so I think that takes discernment. And for me, I just cannot work on one level alone. To me, there are certain things that are subconscious, psychological, attachment like based issues. There's just, if you're not dealing with all the different levels, and you're not doing the full work. And that's not to say that at certain moments in time, you're not going to have to just zero in on one level. And sometimes we just need to work on our body and our mental state will be better. And there are times when it's not about the body because for whatever reason you have physical challenges and you've got to do the mental work, or you have to find other things to work on. And sometimes something just flares up and you're like, okay, that's the thing that I need. Like it's a blaring problem and you're just like, I have to focus on that. And so it's really a matter of seeing the whole of the person. Like for me, when I work with someone, it's like, here is the essence of the person, here's their earth suit, here's all of the programming that they've attached themselves, and here's how they're operating in the world. And my job is to take this light of their consciousness or their awareness and see what belief systems are like shutters and that are blocking that light, and figure out how to help them heal that so that they can be illuminated. And being illuminated isn't about having a glowy aura. I think you do anyways when you're in a better place. And I think our EM fields are actually bigger and stronger when we're in a better place mentally and emotionally and physically. And still, it's more about people having that glow that you had when you were a child, when your eyes twinkled because you had pure potential. And it's the ability to take that energy and apply it to anything you want, your family, your relationships, your goals, your dreams, like whatever it is.
That's so beautiful. I'm like, when are you available next? When are you available next?
We're supposed to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm truly fascinated. Now, you are also a hypnotherapist.
Yeah, it was one tool that I really felt was missing. And I started doing hypnotherapy around 06, 07.
So when you talk about like the underlying beliefs and the, I really believe in the power of the subconscious mind, and
Huge.
it comes for me in waves where I'm like, yes, I'll listen to Joseph Campbell's power of the subconscious mind. I've got my affirmations next to my bed and in my bathroom mirror, and I recorded like a couple of days ago affirmations in my own voice so I can listen to them in the morning and at night. But I can sense, like, even as you were mentioning to share personally, I can certainly sense that a lot of my life I've worked on creating the reality that I desire, versus I can see the ideas, the beliefs, or even the fears that are in, like, whether it's the genetic programming or, like even in the womb, what you may have heard, or that is just in your blood, even the deservability of like success, of how far you can take it. I'm grateful for my family for, they are, I've come to believe, a chosen family. Yet at the same time, like for me, I've had to have some space in between because their ideas of what can be achieved or what is success looks one way versus what looks for me is a bit different. And I think that if I listen to like the safe voice, because I know they say it from a place of love and they want to keep me safe and all of that. Like if I listened to that voice, I would not have moved to Paris, like without learning French, What are you going to do? I got this offer to write a book as a ghostwriter. I've never written a book. I didn't even go to university. Like I was like, okay, yes, let's figure it out. Let's do it. But even as you say that, I'm very curious about how can I go past, because I can sense inside of me, and I'm sure perhaps a lot of the viewers as well, that there are some glass ceilings that we have just enforced and perhaps we're not getting past that. Is there anything you can suggest to us that we can try doing at home now, or something we can implement?
Well, one thing is for certain, if you're going to do your affirmations, make sure they are stated in the affirmative, not what you don't want, but what you do want. Like, that's the first rule number one of affirmations, because the subconscious mind doesn't hear the word not, and nor does the universe. Okay, if you say what you don't want, the universe goes, oh, more of that, right? So make sure they're in the positive. And what I would say is, for subconscious work, the quick cheat would be to do some binaural beats. You can go online and just make sure it's got a good rating on it, that there's no subliminal messages in the binaural beats. But there are some trusted sites where you can download some binaural beats. Make sure you're in a safe place, not driving, and do your affirmations while in a state of trance.
Oh, I love that.
Because affirmations done in the conscious mind is kind of like when you have your phone and it's running an old OS because it's an older phone, and you haven't gotten a new phone and you don't want to like upgrade the OS because you're worried that your phone's going to crash or something. And now you keep trying to put these new apps on it, but the apps won't work because it doesn't work with the old OS. So that's the new app that you want to run is your affirmation, and you're running an OS that's not compatible. And so when you go into a state of trance, which is just lowered brainwave levels, so not beta, which is alert, but at least alpha or theta. So even first thing in the morning, or sometimes while you're running, that's why running works really well, because you get into the zone, you get into that space. And to listen to your affirmations when you get into these zones, or like in the afternoon when you're starting to feel sleepy, that post-lunch sort of crash, we start to drop down, and then we perk up again in the evening, and then we drop down again when we go to sleep. Those are times when you can naturally capitalize on your lower brainwaves, or you can do something like listen to music, or you can do my I Cheat It meditation technique, which will, once you learn how to do it, gets you in a minute into the lower brainwave levels, and then do your affirmations, because a lot of the times the affirmations just don't seem to work, and you actually have a voice in your head saying, but I don't feel that way, but I don't actually think that I'm worthy, I don't actually feel this way. And it only works if you do feel that way. And my tip would be to start, my favorite phrase to put in with things is, each day in every way I get better and better. Like, so that it is gradual. If you feel horrible about yourself and you say, I am the best, I am amazing, I am wonderful,
you're just not going to believe it.
You're not going to believe it.
Yeah.
And then, it's like the kinesiology, you can't tell a lie, you can't tell a dishonesty, and your nervous system has like this like disconnect. It's literally incompatible.
I remember, I was in my mid-20s for a workshop. A teacher had us like go home. Part of the homework was, it was like a 3-day workshop, and look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you. And you had to do that for like, 5 minutes, and see what comes up for you. And waterworks. I just couldn't believe that all the things inside that were coming up, because it was like, oh wow, I don't believe that, or like I didn't feel it, or everything that says no. You were talking about your books, so that was my next question. For our viewers, can you share some tips for people who find it super hard to meditate, that your brain is just like, I can't even close my eyes? Because I have days like that I'm like, I can't even do a guided meditation. Like 5 minutes just feels too long because my mind is just going a million miles an hour.
Okay.
Help.
Yes. Okay. So when you think you can't, you must. One, I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek into my new book, and I'm going to share my 5 laws of meditation. There's a bunch of people who are going to know these because they've meditated with me before. But the first rule or law of meditation is that you are always doing it right. You cannot get it wrong. Okay? Dedication to the practice is the practice. Setting the time for yourself, even if you feel itchy, even if you're racing a mile a minute, all of it is worth it. Now, I will say that if you have ADHD and you're in the zone, be in the zone. Meditate later. Meditate in the evening to help settle, to help process things. You know, like allow yourself to capitalize on what works for you. You need to schedule this in when it serves you, and everybody's a little bit different. I would never tell someone with ADHD who is in a hyper-focused state to say, oh, well, you're functioning at peak level right now, you better stop and take a meditation break right now. No, I want you to meditate when you have a moment. Don't do it when you're busy. And I would rather people do 1 minute many times a day than 45 minutes a week.
Or I've been like 45 minutes every once or 2 months,
Yeah.
once a month, or like, but lately, one of the things I've been doing, I'm like, okay, 2-minute timer. I play like flute music, bansuri music. And I know, okay, the timer's gonna go off.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable. It was like, oh my God, this is the longest. I have to be here. I have to check my email and this and that. Okay. And now I'm up to like 7 minutes.
Okay. So this is probably going to help. Rule number 2, thoughts are not the enemy. Okay. Your brain was built to have thoughts. Your brain doesn't exist here. It goes all the way from here to your hands and your feet. Your entire nervous system is really your brain. And awareness is not the cessation of thought. Awareness is awareness. When you are aware, you notice things. From a place of your consciousness, you are the thing that notices. You have awareness. You're allowed to notice a noise. You're allowed to notice things. That means you're alive. You're not dead when you meditate. You're a living being, and you're allowed to be aware. So thoughts are not the enemy. And in fact, most of the thoughts are really just incomplete things that your brain is just trying to get out. And because you're being rude to yourself and you're cutting yourself off and you're saying, don't think that way, you're being extremely rude to yourself. And if you were in a conversation with me and I cut you off repeatedly when you had something that you needed to just get off your chest, how awful would you feel? Right? Half the time when we sit down, we're just so inundated with things in the world, we don't have time to process our interactions, let alone the hundreds of emails and social media and all these like connections and things that we have going on. Like, how do we process those in a day? When we sit down, our minds are of course busy because we're so stimulated, and that's okay. The harder part is to sit and listen. And the hardest part is the fact that rule number 3, emotions are not fluffy things, they are neurochemicals. And it's not the thought that's so bad, it's how you feel about it. Right? Just like you could have some random person just be like, I hate you. And then you have someone who's like a close friend or someone who you really love, and they said they hate you. One would hurt and one would be like, that's random. Right? It's the same thing with your thoughts. You could have a thought and you could be like, interesting that I'm having that thought. Interesting that I'm feeling angry about this. Interesting that I'm feeling this way. And so emotions, though, if you don't feel them, these neurochemicals, they stick around in your shoulders, in your jaw, in your gut, in your body, in your hips, right? It sticks around for later. And so if you don't feel it, you can't release it and process it. And what's challenging for most people is that, especially strong people like yourself, it's like we go like, I've got this, I'm strong, I've got this. And
you're
now,
seeing through me.
Well, it's also me. I do the same thing. I meditate because I need it. And we have these layers of emotions that we haven't processed in our lifetime. And when layers of emotion come up all at the same time, it's overwhelming. And when we feel overwhelmed and we can't even understand ourselves, we feel lonely. Because we feel like, if I can't understand me on a very instantaneous level, we're like, I can't understand myself, and therefore no one else can understand me. I'll never be able to connect with anyone else, and now you feel alone. I don't know if that makes sense.
Completely makes sense. It was fascinating how you were mentioning about just pushing through stuff. I think, with work and everything and being a creative freelancer for the last like 2 decades or more. And it's so interesting. I hold so much tension in my shoulders. And even like turning my head from side to side, like even that is almost painful for me. Yet at the same time, like I could be super sick and I'll be in bed doing emails.
Yeah.
And it's come to the point of like, like you get the pros and cons that, okay, when you're one woman, one man show, whatever, you're like, the show must go on, I need to do this. Yet at the same time, a part of you expects other people to operate at the same level around you.
And they don't.
Yes. And then I've had this conversation with a few other females like around my age, and having like, after so long, like you're pushing yourself and working in a very masculine way in our industry, after a while your body is like no bueno, or like your nervous system is like, I need a break. So that's why like lately with the show, I'm like, okay, even if I meditate for like, and I'm not even doing guided meditations, I'm just like, just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe, and then I'll think of things to be grateful of, and then I will think of like my desired reality, like what I want. Like I'm trying to like visualize that. Yet I do feel the push, you know, and I think that's so, I'm not sure if it's because I wasn't born in this country or what, like there's something inside to wanting to, the fire inside to just keep going.
Yeah.
But I know I need to bring it into balance with rest and relaxation. Like, Farzana, you won't believe this entire summer, this weekend was the first time I went to the beach.
I believe it. I do believe it. I do believe it. And you know what? It's interesting that you said masculine way of approaching things, because in my experience, and I'm not saying that men don't work hard, I think they do. The men that I know that are really successful, they're also good at really taking breaks. And the women that I know that are really successful, they push and push and push and push and push, and they never give up. And it's almost like the way I see mothers commit to their families. And I think that actually it's a very feminine thing to potentially just dive in and just like, this is my family, this is my baby, I have to give my baby everything.
100%. That
I don't know. I don't mean to catch on that, but
I see like 100%, and I
Yeah.
never even thought of it like that. But that's my first show. Like, it was my second show, but first national show, Life in Style with Zara. It was like I was so devoted to the reality of this that after the 12 episodes, once the show finished, I had like postpartum. Like, I used to call, this is my baby. This is my baby.
Yeah.
And afterwards, once we
Yeah.
were done, I didn't know what to do with
Yeah.
myself. What was my reality? Like,
Yeah.
who am I?
Yeah.
And I went through, whoo.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are some amazing things. And no, like, thank you so much for sharing those 5 laws. And I think what I found fascinating, sorry, go ahead.
4 was be physically comfortable, because don't impinge your nervous system, and just sit. Sit. It doesn't have to be on the floor. And 5, you're always doing it right. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Now you have them all.
Yeah. It's interesting because what's taught, or what is the idea of meditation, is like you have no thought, you know, or like you're like this, like I'm forcing myself to sit, you know, not like forcing, like, but I can tell my anxiety or my nerves because of working on several different projects and like the show and like post production and auditioning and everything, and my dog being pulled in so many directions. I need to take that moment, and for me, I'm realizing it has to be in the morning. It has to be in the morning that I'm like, okay, what is going on for me inside of my body? Like, breathe into that. And it's towards like the last 6-7 minutes that finally my shoulders drop.
Okay, well, we've got some dates in the future, you and I.
Okay, I can't
We're gonna
wait.
we're gonna have like a meditation date. We're gonna have like a meditation date.
I can't wait.
Either in the morning or the evening when it's not so hot, though.
I would love that. I know. Sorry, it's hot in my apartment.
No, mine is hot too.
We should have turned on the AC earlier. I would love to hear what were some of the things, like maybe if you can share 3 things that you learned working with Tony and his team. And working with so many different people. Because when people show up at a Tony Robbins like seminar, workshop, retreat, whether it's 1 week or a weekend or 2 weeks, they're wanting to, because I've seen a lot of his stuff online, and it's actually one of my dreams to one day be at a Tony Robbins event.
You know, they're not the same as they used to be. I think he speaks a little bit less these days because of his voice. He's used it for so many years. One thing I will say that I've learned is that I loved that I got to go when I did, because in the 90s, Tony would start the event at 8 a.m. and he'd keep us till 2 a.m. And when you're facilitating, we had to be there earlier to get to like have our breakfast, to do our pre-meeting, and we would stay after to debrief afterwards and plan for the next day and what the activities were going to be and how it was going to roll out. I mean, I learned that you are capable of so much more. I think that immersion is really, really important, and you are capable of so much more. And, you know, people call it brainwashing, and so what? It's good brainwashing. Like, if you're going to, because this is what happens when and this is just the difference between hypnotherapy and hypnosis and brainwashing. In brainwashing, you have sleep deprivation, and in hypnotherapy, you rest the mind. And it's much nicer and gentler to do hypnotherapy. But if you break someone down and sleep deprive them, the first thing that happens is they go into fight or flight mode. And when you go into fight or flight mode, you immediately start to look for all the dangers. But the dangers are now social and emotional. And so you're looking at all the negative things. And this can be really great in an environment like that, where there's like all these teams of people there to support you and watch for if you're having like a breakthrough moment where you're like hitting something that's like really hitting a nerve and you might need an intervention. And it's quite a beautiful environment to be in, because you are going to be stretched. You are going to have crazy long days. You're going to feel like you're breaking. And when you break, that's when you're going to have your moment of breakthrough, right? You're going to break down, and then you're going to come through that and learn something. And I think that to do that and then have all of this positive stuff and actionable things that you can actually fit into your life and do, I think that's beautiful. And I recently worked with an event producer who didn't believe that we could do a 3-day event, and I was like, oh, that's really sweet. I want a 2-week event, or like I want a 1-week event. It's like, and they were like, no, people can't handle that. And I'm like, oh no, they can. I said, they'll have breaks, they'll have fun. It's a journey. And if I only have this much time with these people to do this much work, then it's going to be some long days, because if I have to responsibly take them through the journey. And so I learned about what it's like to facilitate and carry people through a space. So like, we're capable of more. I learned how to carry people through a space. And for me, there was just an energy about holding that space. And it was something that I think, I saw that Tony did it, but I also would do it with my cousins, with my younger cousins, was that I would expand my energy until everyone was in my bubble. And whenever I talk, that's how I feel about the room. Everybody's in my space and they're under my protection, and I'm here to take care of these people.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So you worked with him for how many years?
I don't even know, about like actively for about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's how your modeling career got started, because Tony was like, you need to get into modeling.
Well, he actually gave me my first modeling job, which was making a video to make fun of Dr. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it was a video that we shot, and every time he'd speak, they'd play the video and everyone would start laughing. It was like kind of a prank thing. And he basically just said, oh, you're shy? That's nice. Well, you're going to model, you're going to travel, you're going to meet incredible people, and you're going to help them, and you're going to make a big difference.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Like, that's such a cool story, honestly.
And it was the reason that my mom actually got me into it, because people had been telling her, because I was 5'9" by the time I was 11, and people had been saying, she should model. And my mom and dad were like, no, not our daughter. And then after that...
After Tony Robbins, it's like, yes!
Because she was friends with my mom and Blanche from Blanche and McDonald.
Okay.
Blanche and my mom were really good friends. And then, do you remember Faisal Virani?
No.
He used to, in the 90s, he was dressing like Rosie O'Donnell, and like, he was one of our big designers. There were a bunch of like designers and people in the industry who would be like, yeah, your daughter has to... Yeah.
And you went to have a career modeling, and...
I didn't really. I just wanted to travel.
Yeah.
I really wanted to travel, and I loved fashion. But I didn't really feel comfortable with the attention. It was awkward, and I don't know, but I was wondering, when you mentioned, we were talking about this earlier on, but when you were in school, did you ever tell anyone in school that you modeled? Because I kept it a secret.
I didn't model when I was in school. It was after school. Such a fluke. I was training for the military, and yes, you can have my water. You can completely, if you have my water. No,
you were training for the military.
Yeah, I was.
Just me stealing your water.
No, I haven't even talked about this on the show. I finally, after like a couple of tries, I finally got accepted in the Canadian Reserves unit, and I wanted to travel. And on television at that time was Tyra and like America's Next Top Model, and I got super fit. I was like boxing and weight training and all this kind of stuff, and I was such a tomboy growing up. Like, that was my thing. I was the smart kid in school in Pakistan, and I would dress like the boys, oversized. I didn't even know how to walk in heels. Like, modeling, I was like, didn't even know how to put on mascara. Like, these girly things was my... And I just needed work, and I saw like an ad that for like a hair show, and as soon as part of the hair show was that you had to like walk on this runway, and as soon as they put hair, makeup, outfits and everything on, something inside of me changed as soon as I was on a runway. And I never really saw myself as beautiful growing up. I knew I was smart. I didn't really, it was just not something that was said to me, it wasn't really, it was always like, you're interesting or interesting looking, but it wasn't really, so I never really believed it, and I grew up watching Miss India Universe, and all the girls that were finally like, wow, we get to have like a dark-skinned Miss Universe, which was at the time, like, it's like, for example, Aishwarya, not Aishwarya, but Sushmita Sen, and then Priyanka Chopra and all those girls. And I was like, wow, the South Asian women, because a win for India, for me, felt like a win for Pakistan. And even in my country, if you want to talk about colorism, in my family, I would get told, like, don't go in the sun, and I loved going in the sun. And I would, get a few shades warmer.
Well, it's still also so funny that you were told you were dark, right? Because, I mean, I was told that I was dark, but you were also told that you were dark.
Because everyone in my...
ridiculous.
Everyone in my family, on my mom's side of the family, they had lighter eyes, lighter hair, and I was the darkest. So like the way that the word
Just to
dark
be
even,
othered, even when
Yeah.
it's such a subtle difference, right?
and like you've been sitting here, I'm just like looking, admiring your beauty. I'm like, wow, you're so beautiful, like just inside and out, like both like equally. And it's taken me a long time. It's been a journey. Like, and I talk about this, for me to see that it's inside out, and yes, this, and even with the weight and the sizes and all that kind of stuff, learning to love my body. And it's been a journey. It's not been easy. And of course, the industry's helped with my confidence. But I got into modeling super accidentally. Like, it was like not like I'm going to model. Super, but then it's helped me. It's challenged me, but it's also helped me.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I can relate though, because I never felt comfortable with the attention, and yet I was put into a lot of performance things. But then it was like, that's your task. You're supposed to perform at that task. And what I really enjoyed about the fashion show was that I got to meet the designers, and you kind of get to, when you go for your fitting, you get to see their creative workspace. It's like stepping into their brain, and you see their personality and what they're thinking and how the collection comes together. And then it's like, oh, I'm a part of this, and I really want to do a good job to showcase their art. You literally part of their art.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what it was. It was an artistic expression. Whereas, and even like doing photo shoots, I also wasn't raised to be beautiful per se. I was raised to be intelligent. I was raised to be smart. And it's not that people told me that I was ugly. Nobody told me that I was ugly, but nobody was going around saying, "Oh wow, she's so pretty. She's so pretty." Like, it wasn't really like that. It was just, so I don't know, when I started doing the modeling and I saw the pictures and I was like looking at them, I'm like, "Oh, she's really pretty." And they would be like, "That's you."
That was me when I saw your work. I'll never forget. I don't even know what show it was. I remember it was really hot. And I remember meeting you, and you had so much grace and poise and things like 20 years ago.
If you spot it, you got it.
Oh, I love you. It was like 20
it.
years ago. And then I remember later on, you were saying you're with Richards, and I remember going on the website and being like, wow. And even when I was talking to you, there was something about you, like, of course you're beautiful, but it was your energy, I remember, and your poise and the way that you spoke, that I was like, wow, she's very interesting and very fascinating. And I think I was like in my early 20s. Like, I don't even remember like how long ago that was. What is it like for you to go and speak at events such as, you know, if you're working, you know, hired to speak as a motivational speaker or giving a TED talk, and what is that process like, and what is that experience like for you? And, you know, all these people, it's like, yes, you are beautiful and you modeled, and, you know, you've been meditating for this long, and you get to have this stage now to share your message.
It's more like, it's grace to me. It's like, okay, I have been given this platform to be of service. I better make this count. So I really start to think about what do they need right now. I look at what topics they've asked me to speak on. I think about my audience, and I also think about what's just going on in the world. Because there is a global climate, psychologically and emotionally. And depending on the group, I can touch on that in different ways. And I feel like when I speak, I like to address those levels of things to make sure that by the time we're done the talk, even if you don't completely agree with me, I want you to have felt something about what I said. So I want it to touch your heart or make you think about something. And so that's really what I'm going for. It's like, if this is what I've been asked to speak on, I want to do it in such a way that it will touch your heart and your mind in a way that you'll look at it more than once. Because really, the only way we ever learn anything is through intense emotion and repetition. And so I think not being afraid to be passionate when I speak is something that is so important. And it's not to say that I don't really appreciate logic, I do, but I think really connecting with people and being vulnerable in such a way that they can feel with me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense.
It completely makes sense. I've listened to like a million also Tony videos, and he'll talk about, you know, like matching the tone or like this and like how to get inside. And yeah, I love that. And I think when I was watching one of your videos on YouTube, and I see how even your presence and how you're able to like lead a room, and you know, it's really beautiful to see you on stage using your voice and sharing your message with an audience. And I can see it lands because I'm going through the comments section then, and I can just see like, you know, all these people being like, wow, what a blessing, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I just wanted to share that. I was, you know, because I like to watch the video because I also like to see how it's landing with other people, like not just myself. And, you know, people are seeing that. So I would love to hear when you're doing these like week-long events, because that sounds amazing.
Well, we're going to have one. I haven't booked the dates yet, but there's going to be a 7-day challenge to regrow your brain and another 7-day challenge to help people get sleep. And it's something that I practically give away price-wise because I really feel like sometimes people need that week to be like, I feel like a different person. My days have been different. I have felt different, to actually feel the difference. Because otherwise people meditate once and it was nice, but they don't do it again for like a couple months, right? Or even once a year. And they're like, yeah, I did that one time. It felt good when I did it. Like, it's still enough that they felt good when they did it. But I feel like it's the gift that I give people. And if that's something that helps people dive in deeper and keep up a practice, then I want to do that.
That's amazing.
Oh, hello, little one.
You were mentioning that, you know, you're going to be releasing these other books, the How I Cheat at Happiness and How I Cheat at Sleep. Are we able to talk about
all I cheat at?
Okay.
Yeah. I cheat at. So if you put how, you won't find it.
I cheat at. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. But they are how-to books. But I don't know about you, I've read a million how-to books, and sometimes when I see how-to, I'm like, I don't want it. And I wanted to personalize it. But yeah, I cheat at happiness, I cheat at sleep, and I cheat at life are all starting to come up.
I cheat at life? Oh, yeah. I love that.
So I cheat at life, I want it to be more of like something that you could flip open and just be like, oh, this is help for an intention of the day. Because I really think that it can be very helpful when you've got a lot going on to zero in and be like, this is something that I can work on today for myself, or even this week, and to have some support in like, oh, okay, well, let's look at this. Sometimes I feel this way. Well, what are the different ways that I can shift my mindset? What are the actions that I can take to integrate this shift into my daily life for the rest of the week? And so, yeah. Hi, baby.
Hi, Loki wants some love. He's like, love. Auntie, I need some attention. That's amazing. I think, and you were mentioning your story.
And another meditation book that I just wrote. That's coming out
last week. That's brilliant.
Well, just because I've shifted the way I talk about things, and I think the I Cheat at meditation was a 1-minute technique, and I think people want more, and so I'm going to give more.
That's amazing. I love that. You also have a podcast coming out soon. Are we able to talk about that?
She's going to be on. Yeah, we can talk about it. She's going to be.
I listened to one of the interviews. It's, first of all, visually, I love the space. It's great to see you bringing on some amazing guests and talking about some very meaningful things and a wide range of guests. So can we talk about that? Can we share the name of the podcast?
Okay, it's called Eavesdropping, extraordinary mindsets. And honestly, I don't know, I don't know about you, but even like our conversation that we had when we went out the other day was just so beautiful. And sometimes for decades now, I've been having these beautiful conversations, and I honestly get so much out of them. And I know my friends do as well. And, you know, in recent years, since podcasts have become a thing, it's just like, we should have recorded that. That was like really good. I feel like so many people would have gotten something out of that. And I just am so blessed with being surrounded by such extraordinary people that with extraordinary mindsets who have overcome so many things that I just, yeah, I felt like it was remiss not to share that with people.
I love that, and I love the name Eavesdropping. It's really, truly a beautiful name. So you just wrote this meditation book. You have
just
these other
inspired writing of meditation book last week.
I love. I'm not sure if you want to talk about this, but I remember you had mentioned you're also really good at helping people write their own books or even getting that out, because that's something I really want to do.
Okay, so
I've written someone else's book, but I'm like, I need to write my own and I don't know where to start.
Okay, it's way harder to write your own stuff, just like it's easy to model for someone else and to be a model for someone else's brand than it is to take your own headshots and be you. Like for your show, your business, this is who you are.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing. And the same is true.
Low key.
He just wants to play.
I know.
The same is true of, don't eat my shoes, baby. Don't eat
Low
the shoes.
key. No.
But the same is true of your own book. When it's in your own head, you don't necessarily know what you know. And sometimes it's the same thing that I would do with someone who's my client. I start to look at the patterns, I look at the things, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, what about this? What about that? And I can help you sort of like pull it into the right area.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
And like pull out the topics and sort of help someone develop that.
I liked how casually you came in. You're like, yeah, I just wrote another book. And I was like, I just saw you like 2 weeks ago.
I had like a very intense week of inspired sessions. And I was just like, this is not, none of this stuff is in my original book on meditation. So I have to write a new one. So I did.
I can't wait to get my hands on them, because I cheat at meditation.
And okay, you know what though? You know how you were saying the way it's formatted?
Yeah.
When I wrote that, I wrote it the same way. I love information, but I want it fast. I don't want to read through like 20 million bits of like jargon. Like I want the goods right away. I've been spoiled with good teachers, and when you have a good teacher and you get to have a conversation, you get to the good stuff right away.
And the good thing about it is that you have graphics. There'll be like a page with just an inspirational quote. So my brain, I get bored very quickly. I like content like that, versus it's all just text.
Yeah.
When it's all just in the same way.
Nothing to break it up. Yeah. I actually didn't know I had ADHD when I wrote this, and I was actually suffering from severe brain damage and neurological damage throughout my nervous system. And when I wrote this, I needed it to be easy to digest. And so smaller paragraphs have always been easier for me to read. Bolding things, highlighting things, like narrower like writing, so that your eye doesn't have to track across in the same way and have eye fatigue, right?
Loki loves your shoes. Loki.
Do you love my shoes?
We don't do that to guests.
Are shoes delicious? But yeah, like
yeah, I remember you mentioned that earlier when we met for lunch. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you wrote a book in that condition.
Yeah. But it had to be digestible. It had to be easy to access. It had to be something that I would want to read. And I was just like, sometimes you need to sit with certain things for a little bit longer, which is why I use the real estate of a couple of pages. I did get criticized for that, but we did plant 100 trees, which more than made up for the print costs. We plant trees every year, but still, I feel like that double page of like a thought, that sometimes you just need to take that thought as the only thing and sit with that for half an hour.
I love that.
Or even a day.
You're just inspiring me so much, because I want to sit down with you and be like, how can I write my first book? What is the message?
No, we're going to do it. It's going to be great. So we have meditation date, we have a hypno date, and now we have a book date.
Amazing. I love it. Farzana, I truly feel like I can talk to you for like hours, because I think we've just very briefly covered the amount of things and knowledge that you have, and I really want to commend you for taking the time and also sharing so openly your story. So thank you so much for being so open with us. I know it is also getting warm in here, and like the sun is shining directly on you, but it's also got this beautiful glow on you, because as I look at you, it's like the sun is shining on one part of your face.
It is nice out, actually.
Because the show is called The Inspired Life Vancouver, before I let anyone go, I love to know, where do you get your inspiration from? What inspires you?
Honestly, it's that if I can have gone through, and we didn't talk about a lot of things, but I don't need to talk about them. If I can have gone through a lot of the things that I've been through in my life and be happy and not visually display the baggage or any of that stuff, because I am happy and I am fulfilled. And it doesn't mean that I don't have challenges, but if I can be happy and fulfilled in my life, then when I see other people that are having challenges, like that for me is just that knowing that they can do it too. Like that for me is the most important thing. It's like, if I get to feel this way, I want everyone to feel this way.
I love that.
Like it's kind of selfish.
I love that. It's like wanting the best for others, and I think you do that with your clients, or whether you, through your readers, whoever is reading your book and whoever is listening to Eavesdropping, which will be launching soon, or in an audience like at TED or any of the events that you have coming up. Is there a particular spot in Vancouver you love going to help relax, or that inspires you?
Well, you know, I have the new puppy, so we're almost a year. So, yeah, I think it's just my walks with him. I love just walking the seawall.
Yeah, same.
And just for me, he when he was little, he needed a lot of walks before he could go to daycare or do anything. And just walking the seawall and taking in the view, whatever the weather is, however it is, whatever the time of year is, just being outside in nature is like one of my favorite things. And honestly, one of my favorite things to do is I love sometimes taking my work to a hotel lobby.
I love that. I used to do that a lot in Paris.
Yeah, because you're gonna have, there's an energy there that's a lot like the energy of travel. And
can you tell me when you're going? I would love to join.
Okay, yeah, we'll go. And I just like taking some of my work and grabbing a pot of tea and sitting down.
Yeah.
And it's just usually like high ceilings, open spaces. Usually it's a good temperature. There's some interesting people watching that satisfies my ADHD, and then I can get so much done.
I love Bacchus Lounge, like at the Wedgwood. I used to go there a bit and just a cup of coffee and sit down and work, or
I've never been to that one.
Yeah, or even Pacific Rim.
Nice. The Fairmont Pac Rim. Yeah. I find that one's one of the best ones. Again, for like lots of natural light.
Natural light, very spacious.
Yeah, I've never done the Bacchus. I always thought it was kind of darker in there.
It's nice during the daytime. You do, but it's not. It's a different vibe. It's
different
very
vibe.
Euro French, you know, wood and
But that would maybe remind you of
from Paris. My
Yeah.
time in Paris
Yeah.
completely.
Mm.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we'll go.
We have a date then.
We have a date.
Well, we'll do one of your we'll do the book planning session there,
Oh,
right?
you are so inspiring. I feel so
Ditto.
blessed and honored to have gotten to know you on a deeper level over the last little while. Like,
Just the beginning though.
yeah, completely the beginning. And I felt like I only knew one part, or, you know, I knew about the book, the model, and bits and pieces I saw on social media. And then I only knew the tip of the iceberg. And there's this body of work, and you're truly an inspiring human being, and everything you've overcome. And
Ditto.
I love how you inspire, help, heal, and affect others.
Yeah.
You know, that is, and also the fact, you know, everything you've gone through to get to that point, and how every time I see you, all of our interactions, like you're smiling and beaming, and I'm so glad that we did this. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And you know, all of the things that you're saying, you're inspiring. And look at what you've done with this show and creating this platform for wellness. So much wellness. I mean, yeah, it's really beautiful what you're creating here, and you're giving back to our community.
Thank you. Thank you, Farzana.
Oh, thank you. Oh, somebody wants to be part of the
Loki
hug.
wants to be a part of the hug. Well, if you guys felt inspired, make sure to let us know. Thank you so much for tuning in.